Welcome back to Incredible Conversations, everybody. Honored to have you, and so honored to have our special guest today. Y'all, this is what we live for as vulva owners in today's age. We're gonna get into the nitty-gritty of it all. Our guest is beautiful, she's magnetic, her content is amazing, and I can't wait for you to meet her. So, who do we have on the show? We have Colleen Howell, and Colleen is a certified hormone health specialist who empowers vulva owners to nourish mind, body, and soul through holistic menstrual, sexual, and relational health education. Does that not sound like the best job in the world? I'm so happy to have her with us today. And today we're going to be chatting about all things of coming back home to your vulvaceous body, the menstrual cycle, hormone health optimization, a little bit of female anatomy, birth control, female pleasure, bringing in our partners into the mix. And it's going to be an orgasmic conversation just waiting to climax. So you're in for a treat. So, Colleen, how are you doing during this Cancerian season we're in?
Hi, Isabel. I am also so honored to be on your podcast. And what an intro. Thank you so much. I am fully enjoying this Cancerian season. I feel like it's very fitting in that I just moved into a new home. So a lot of my time over the last few weeks has been really, nurturing the space and creating a sense of hominess and also, I think nurturing the relationship with my partner that I just moved in with, and creating routines and just a seamless transition and cohabitating. So yeah, I've been enjoying, and it's definitely been really warm, and we don't have AC, so just been embracing the heat. And sometimes clothes are optional in the day, and that's okay. And yeah, so it's been fun.
Ah, that's the best. Hey, clothing optional all the time. Why not? Like, let's just free the body. Let's make it feel at home. But the heat.
Yeah.
Oh, and you're in Colorado, correct?
Yeah, this week especially, it's been like mid 90s or so, but I just feel like the Colorado sun, it's like once you're up in elevation, it's like so intense.
Yes, I agree with that. Having lived in Summit County for 5 years, just nothing up even over 6,000 feet. Then you get to the 9,000 feet. You're getting hit hard. So I'm happy you're staying cool and you're adapting to your new home. That's amazing. So today I'd love for you to share your story with how you got involved and started with your own vulva journey and like went into the multiverse of this.
Hmm. So I usually take it back to 2013. I actually kind of stumbled across the world of veganism, or just I came across a few documentaries. I was initially inspired by this healthy lifestyle blogger that I followed, and I had a healthy lifestyle blog at the time. Yeah, back in 2013, which feels like eons ago. And from reading books, documentaries, that really like exposed me generally to the corruption, just the systemic injustices at play. And I think from there, I just became a more like conscious consumer as a whole, down to every little thing. And like, how is this particular choice impacting the world, other people, other beings, etc. So from there on out, I just questioned things more, I just didn't take things at surface level. And so that then brought me into really really caring into like how I was taking care of myself, from the inside out. And yeah, so I was a junior in college. It was the summer before my junior year, and right when I graduated from undergrad, a few months had passed. It was like a whole thing where I was like, I'm not drinking anymore, that's poison. I don't know, I was making a lot of rash decisions, understandably so, with all that I was learning and unraveling. But it was January 2016 when I was like, why am I going to a pharmacy once a month? Like, I feel like I'm a healthy individual and I'm taking this hormonal birth control pill that I don't really know that much about. At this point, I'm not even sexually active. Why am I taking this? So I just stopped, like cold turkey, without knowing much else about it, just kind of like intuitively feeling like I shouldn't be on it anymore. And from there, I experienced so many adverse effects, from, acne was a big thing, sleeplessness, increased body odor, just little things that you don't even realize are correlated with hormones. At least I didn't at the time. Different hair growth as well. I was like, actually, a lot of my hair had thinned on the birth control pill, and it got thicker and curlier when I got off of it, which is more like how it was when I was in my younger years. Um, but yeah, so from there, I realized why I was even having these adverse effects and coming off of the pill, because of the depletion and the stripping that happens when you are on hormonal birth control. And we're just not taught how to properly support our bodies because truly, there's so much shame and taboo around, simply our own anatomies and just like the foundational workings. So naturally, we're like, going to disconnect and just do whatever is easiest to put a band-aid or whatever we need to just carry about our lives and not have to concern ourselves with our own bodies. So from there, and deep diving into understanding how the pill affected me, and then, in a grander scheme, how hormones affect our bodies and how we're just not taught about these, very important processes that literally allow us to optimize the way that we live. I was like, okay, this is like really important. And I would love nothing more than to support other women or vulva owners in their journeys. And, if I had known what I know now before getting off of the pill, I would not have experienced all of those wild side effects and, quality of life affecting symptoms. And then, that's just continued on and expanded into kind of all things that we know is like shameful and taboo around like sexuality and just like, just feminine empowerment as a whole, everything that's like hush hush. But really, it's like, it comes back to igniting our life force energy, not muting our own originality, or just, the beauty in our existence. So yeah, it's been a beautiful journey, and I feel like I just, keep learning more and expanding. And I'm working right now in expanding my work in like sex, love, and relationship coaching. So more to come on that. But for now, I'm focusing a lot on just women's and vulva owners' hormone health.
No better time for this podcast too, with all of the very strange capitalism going on these days. So I'm really honored that you have, like you found this path and how it's developed over time, like from the beginning, going headstrong, all in, like that self discipline to really strip away the unnecessary, almost material things the world kind of pushes on women and suppresses women with. You must be, or you have to look, or whatever the case, and bringing a whole new storyline to it. I think that's really fabulous. And I would love to hear more about what your work as a hormonal health specialist entails.
Yeah. So, as a certified hormone health specialist, and I guess you could also say like a hormone health coach, I usually like to throw in holistic because, what I do speak of and what I think we forget is that it truly is like mind, body, and spirit. As much as we focus so much on the body, which is important, I would say one of the first things, is returning to the body. It's, working on the nervous system regulation and, that mental health aspect, but also just returning home to like your truest essence, like your childlike wonder, and like kind of just, feeding that the spirit, your soul. But yeah, so just, in a day-to-day, the kind of offerings that I have is like working one-on-one with vulva owners in taking the Dutch test, which is a like comprehensive hormone panel. It's a dried urine sample test. So they simply order it, they take it at home, pee on the strip, send it back, receive the test, and then we go over their results in detail. I create like a personalized lifestyle plan that encompasses, mind, body, spirit. And it is very much lifestyle and food focused. So, movement, practices that it really a lot of times comes down to the basics. As far as really ensuring you get quality sleep, getting outside, getting in the sunshine, having, rainbow-licious, nourishing meals, slowing down, being present, kind of like going against the grind culture that, we have among us. And I think what leads to a lot of these hormonal imbalances that people experience. And then I also host master classes. So these have been live master classes and then recorded versions as well. So I've done ones on the fertility awareness method, which is a non-hormonal form of birth control. So basically it's tracking your biomarkers, your basal body temperature, or the temperature upon waking every morning, your cervical fluid, your cervical position. And when you track those regularly every day, you actually are able to identify your fertile window. So just the 6 days in your menstrual cycle that you actually are able to get pregnant. Something, again, we're never taught and are just made to fear that we can get pregnant 24/7, when the reality is men or penis owners are the ones that can actually provide that pregnancy opportunity 24/7. So that one, and then also just supporting vulva owners and getting off of hormonal birth control, because as long as you're supporting your body, the transition should be pretty seamless.
I love that. Preach the whole, there's only 6 days in the month that can happen. I was talking to my naturopath yesterday because I found out I was anemic earlier in the year, and something I guess is common for women in just the fertile stage of life. It was very extreme then, but has gotten better. And so just making sure I don't need to be on prescription iron. And needless to say, she asked, so what's your sex ed like? And I was like, well, let me tell you, I'm not on any birth control and I'm absent for 6 days of the month. So she laughed and was like, great, I like your plan. And so it's just very great to have someone speaking to these unusual ways of living as a woman, which is so far out of the truth. So I love that you're here and spreading this. What is a common, how can women go from being on the pill or on a birth control to coming off of it? And what would that transition look like so that they feel supported and not fearful of what might happen when they do come off? And so they don't turn into a pimply monster or a raging, crazy monster under the bed.
Yeah, those descriptions are so real. I mean, the fear is real because, again, we're just not taught, like you're saying, about how to tune into our body. So to answer your question, I would say first thing is to educate yourself on what the heck the menstrual cycle even is, and the breakdown of those 4 phases and how to care for yourself in each of those. Because these 4 phases, the reason that they are broken down in the way that they are is because there's specific hormonal fluctuations that are happening that cause you to have lower energy, have varying nutrient needs, and therefore different activities or items to do are going to vary. So to actually organize your calendar or things that are going on in your life around that is super ideal. And then kind of what I was mentioning before, and just focusing in on the basics before you take any further action of ensuring you get at least 8 hours of regular sleep. And when I say regular, I mean have a schedule. So the most ideal time is 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. A lot of the restoration processes that happen in the body is between 12 and 2, I believe. So it's really important to be in that deeper sleep during that point. And also getting up and being in nature as much as you can. I know a lot of us, work jobs that we're not always able to be outside, but at least 10 minutes in the morning, when the sun's rising, 20 minutes during the day, when it's peak, and then again 10 minutes during that golden hour or sunset, it actually really helps support your circadian rhythm, which allows you to get that better quality sleep. So when people are trying to better their sleep, it starts first thing in the morning and getting that sun exposure, and also in that way limiting the blue light exposure too. And then also I think a lot of, which I'm sure you see in your work too, is that women vulva owners oftentimes are under eating and not even realizing it. So making sure that you're actually nourishing yourself properly, It's typically, I mean, at least 2,000 calories a day, but your body needs the fuel to, properly endure the processes at play. And even like in your menstrual cycle, so right after you ovulate, you have the luteal phase, your metabolic rate actually increases. So you will like be hungrier because your body needs more fuel to endure the processes to build up your uterine lining to either carry out pregnancy or to release it during menstruation or your period. So sleep, eating enough, getting outside, and bowel movements once a day. I mean, the ideal is like a really solid, well-formed stool. But that is, one of the key ways that you eliminate excess hormones from the body. And then lymphatic support as well. We have like lymphatic fluid all throughout our body, and that also can hold excess hormones. So, things like gentle exercise. I would say there's also kind of a huge push for like high intensity all the time. And I know you work, with the cycle with your clients, which is incredible, but really allowing yourself the permission to slow down during like the later part of your luteal phase and the menstrual phase, and just like celebrating like the walks and the swims and jump roping, and I don't know, just things that aren't like, crazy, like sprinting, jumping up and down intensely, or yeah, knowing that I think a lot like the, what is it called? NEAT, non-exercise activity total, I think it's called, is like more so what is the basis for, your overall health, muscle development, and throughout the day, rather than just like maybe the 1 hour of your training session. It's more the rest of the day that that counts, which makes sense with the ratio of time. But yeah, so big proponent of walking. So yeah, it's really just focusing back on the simple things.
Yeah, just coming back to the basics. And I love that because it's easy to implement. Going from being on birth control to not doesn't have to be a scary, impending doom feeling. And I love how you're reiterating just sleep, eat, walk, work out. And I love the do not just think your 1 hour of working out is enough for your day. Like, what else are there's 23 more hours of your day. And of course, we're sleeping for ideally 8 of them, 9 of them, but I think we can move, get out. I like to shake in the morning. Like there's so many potentials and opportunities. And so just reminding everyone like it is easy. And to know our
Yeah.
hormones is such an honorable act. It's really allowing us to be in our power, which empowers others to be in their power. Because if we're wanting to be someone of any kind of inspiration, motivation, I suppose, during the day, to be able to be that role model of, hey, like the grind, there's a time and place to get things going, but there's not this like it doesn't have to be 24/7. We're not a gas
Mm.
station, right? We're not just where people can come in and out, like things that don't align with us. Like we have boundaries. That's when we shut down. Time to go home.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I love that you just said that, because that is something that I feel like is missing from what I just said, setting boundaries. So, knowing exactly, your energy expenditure, and also like what is in alignment with you at that moment, at that phase in your menstrual cycle. So yeah, being your own best advocate and setting those boundaries is going to help a lot with just general stress levels, and, coming home to your like most authentic self. So.
Absolutely. When it comes to deficiencies in hormones, what do you often see in your clients?
So the hormonal imbalances that are probably the most common, and this is both in, vulva owners that are coming off of hormonal birth control and just generally, is estrogen dominance.
Mhm.
So this is when estrogen levels are higher than progesterone. These are like yin yang hormones, so they should be about on an even playing field.
Mhm.
Um, so this can be from a number of different things. We have a lot of xenoestrogens in our environment, which simply means estrogen mimicking chemicals.
Mhm.
So, this is everything from, the pollution in our environment to, the herbicides, the pesticides in our foods, surrounding yourself with a lot of plastic, the phthalates in our, our beauty products, the heavy metals, just, little things here and there. Sometimes the candles that we burn, the chemicals, the parasites, all the things in our drinking water. So that adds up really quickly, as well as pharmaceuticals. Hormonal birth control also, contributes to the excess estrogen as well. And then progesterone, just across the board, we see quite a deficiency, especially when getting off of hormonal birth control, because the nutrients that are needed to create progesterone in the body are a lot of times depleted on hormonal birth control. So things like, the B vitamins, vitamin D, vitamin C, vitamin E, a lot of the minerals as well. So magnesium, selenium, potassium. So really focusing on replenishing those nutrients is going to be really important. But so yeah, the estrogen dominance, which creates a lot of what we hear about with heavy periods, heavy bleeding, a lot of PMS symptoms, headaches, migraines, water retention, bloating, and then progesterone. It's like progesterone is a very calming hormone. It's like our anti-anxiety hormone, and it's what allows us after ovulation to kind of ease into our period. So it makes sense across the board that we have deficient progesterone levels, and what can help a lot with that is vitamin E, which is really prevalent in sunflower seeds, but also just really focusing in on reducing your cortisol levels, which competes directly with hormone cell receptor sites with progesterone. So, and there's little things, like blood sugar balancing and things that we often don't realize are even connected, that we can help with that. And the other thing that is very common that I see is high testosterone, or sometimes it's called an androgen rebound after getting off of hormonal birth control. And just generally 1 in 10 women have PCOS, which is actually a metabolic syndrome, kind of a misnomer, and that it's polycystic ovarian syndrome, but you don't have to have polycystic ovaries. It's more, you see high testosterone, you're very sensitive, and your insulin levels, and so you need to be extra careful with balancing your blood sugar, because your ovaries actually have insulin receptor sites, and when your insulin is super high running throughout your body, those ovaries are then signaled to create excess testosterone. And that's when we see things like male pattern hair growth, increased body odor, balding on the head, decrease in breast tissue. It can be sleeplessness, excessive sweating. So just kind of male characteristics in women or vulva owners. So, and I guess this oftentimes comes back to blood sugar balancing, decreasing stress, focusing more on gentle exercise is a big thing, making sure you're eating enough. Those are the big ones.
That's amazing. I didn't know that about the ovaries. I didn't know that they did that. That makes a lot of sense. Oh my goodness. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. When it comes to balancing the blood sugar levels, would you say that for people working out with vulvas to eat beforehand and eat as fast as you can afterwards? I've understood that the faster you can eat afterwards, it's signaling to your body hey, you're done working out, so now we can go and start recovering. Whereas if you resist eating, you wait an hour or 2 hours, your body is still in that process of, oh, we're growing and we're ripping and we're tearing and we're not recovering. And so I'd love to hear your insight there.
So, okay, so before the workout, I would say I've learned from my own experience, and then of course studies and whatnot that are out, that it is very much beneficial for your blood sugar levels to have at least a little something. And it is best if it's, balanced between, carbs and fat. If maybe you have just, a few apple slices with peanut butter, or a rice cake with peanut butter, whatever it might be. But just so you have, one of the main principles is protein, fat, and fiber at each meal. Little snacks here and there probably aren't going to make as big of a difference, but if it is the first thing you're having upon waking in the morning, it is going to have more of an impact. And then afterwards, I've heard mixed things. It's funny, my background, actually, I used to work for a plant-based nutrition company. We are very much in the sports nutrition space for 6 years. I was in account management, and we learned, so much of the performance nutrition type things. And it was funny because when I first began, it was very much like, eat immediately after you finish your workout. And then I guess science had come out, and I'm not totally sure that, as long as you eat within like the next 60 to 90 minutes, I don't think it makes too much of a difference. But I don't feel like I'm an expert anymore here. I would just say, as long as you are replenishing, those calories, replenishing your glycogen stores and whatnot, then I think that you're probably in the go. But I'd love to hear, do you have recommendations for your clients typically with that?
I say the same typical, like within that hour. I mean, the sooner the better. For my own opinion, I get a little grouchy when I don't eat afterwards. And then I feel like I just keep prolonging the consumption of food. Like, oh, I have already gone this long. Let me just keep going. And that's just not a mentality to have. I also feel like women these days, from at least what I hear, is an issue with eating to begin with. And so when we don't know these ideals, or we think that there are these ideals to begin with, it can be intimidating or misleading and very like, well, do I eat now, or do I not eat at all? Do I just pretend I eat and that's going to fill me up? And so I really encourage women to just listen to the body and eat as much as I can in my training, and bring a snack always with you. That's my rule. Like, have a snack in the purse, have it in the bag in the car. You never want to be left alone without a snack. But that's, again, my personal opinion.
Yes. I love that you said that. It's honestly making me reflect back on my own journey with like intermittent fasting. And I think a lot of women vulva owners are in that realm, in that world, maybe have questions. I know that all the research that has been done on intermittent fasting has been done on men, penis owners, or postmenopausal women. So no one that has an infradian rhythm or a menstrual cycle. So these benefits that have been shown, it's actually been shown the exact opposite on women or vulva owners that engage in intermittent fasting in recent studies. So, high cortisol levels, reduction in metabolic rate, things along those lines. I know I've always been a huge, fitness gal, love my workouts and staying active. And I definitely was like very much in the grind of gym culture, starting in my college years, and very much into intermittent fasting. I would work out first thing, I would get my workouts in 6:30. And then, like you said, I would just be like, oh, I haven't eaten so far. Like, I'll wait until noon, or, this intermittent fasting thing apparently is really healthy. And I realized over the years, I think I did that for maybe 5 or 6 years. That really, really affected my blood sugar levels, which I actually have PCOS, and it only exacerbated my symptoms. So definitely since I just like allow myself, I don't have any like timing food rules, just like really tune in, return to your body, feel those hunger cues, and allow yourself to be nourished. And also, when you are eating, be present and enjoy that experience too. I think that's a big thing about returning to the body too, just like fully tuning into the senses.
Yes. And I heard this on another podcast, probably the Aubrey Marcus podcast, from someone. Love him, big fan. But they were saying how we have lost this connection of presence with our food because of that grind culture, the hustle, I have to pick up this thing from this window magically, and I don't know what it contains, but I'm just going to shove it in. But we're not actually psychologically being fulfilled by that, because one, we were hunter gatherers, and we still are. It just looks a lot different now. We might just be gathering from the grocery store, which we can still make very meaningful. And like what they're saying is basically spend time with that food. Like, smell the food before you touch it. If it's like a slab of cow or some leafy greens, smell it, like just get acquainted with it, and then start process, like cook it yourself, make it a moment, invite the family in to bring some real community to the moment. And I think that really helps with the saliva engagement. Our enzymes start going, then our stomach is getting that cue of, hey, it's time to eat. We're going to get ready. We're going to prime ourselves to actually digest this food. And then there's this whole thing with food combinations I've been learning about, which I do think has been helpful for my journey, but might be different for others. And then you just continue on. You chew the food, 30 bites an intake, I suppose, like a spoonful, give or take. But that allows us to actually digest. That's the actual, like the most important part of digestion is that mechanical digestion, I believe, where we're actually chewing the food. We're allowing it to happen. And then it goes down the pipe. And we're nice and slow. I'm the slowest eater in the whole world because I love to just be with the moment. And the food is way cold by the time I get there, but I would love to hear your process with this in itself. And if you have a time that you stop eating at nighttime, if that's something that is helpful for the body or is just another one of those myths.
Oh my gosh, everything you just said is so spot on. I am, yeah, such a huge proponent of like romanticizing the entire food process. I think, perhaps it's my Taurus sun or whatever it might be, but I feel like I've truly been like a lifelong foodie, which has really lent itself to truly the work I do now. But like you said, perhaps for a lot of people, it begins at the grocery store, the farmer's market, and like really immersing yourself in that experience, like the colors and the sights and the sounds and the smells, and like feeling so grateful that you have the ability to very intentionally and intricately select, what you are going to surround yourself with, ingest, and allow yourself to be nourished by. So you select that, you bring it home, you wash it, you cut it, and again, all the senses, the smells, the taste, the touch of it, the juices of the produce coming out or whatever it might be. And then you get to plate it and select each bite, and the chewing is huge. I have a registered dietitian friend that talks about this all the time, and it's always such a good reminder. I think it's an average 2 to 3 bites or 2 to 3 chews is the average American before they swallow it. And that is the first step of digestion, and I wonder why we do have so many gut issues. So yeah, really allowing yourself those, like 30 chews or so until it gets mushy in your mouth, but, savoring each of those bites. And also in that way, it allows you to get into that parasympathetic place in your nervous system, which allows you to, it's like that rest and digest. So you're actually able to like better assimilate those nutrients that are going down. And and then the other thing is, just allowing yourself to like just sit and be. I think a lot of times we eat on the go, or we eat not even thinking about the food. We're on our computers, we're, doing whatever. And I also think it really helps to, if you do this by yourself, that's amazing. But I think it's really beautiful too, like you mentioned, the community aspect, to eat with others, eat with another person. And, you can kind of like, I love talking about the food that I'm eating with whoever I'm with. And like, I love to hear the other person's experience about what they're having. And so that can be really helpful too, just to tune back into the experience of it all. And then your question on timing. So I would say I've really allowed myself a lot of flexibility, coming from more rigidness just generally, but for sure for like eating windows, because I did used to do like 12 to 6 or something like that. So first thing in the morning, it's actually a really good sign of like your metabolism, your hormones overall. If you are hungry first thing in the morning, that's going to depend also what time you eat at the end of the day. If you ate super late, then maybe not. I would say a rule of thumb though is allow yourself like 3 hours to digest the food before you go to bed. So that might look like, having dinner planned for 6:30 every night, 6:30. That's probably the best if you're going to bed at like 10 p.m. That way your body is able to really focus its energy on the restoration processes that are going to be at play when you're sleeping, instead of continuing to digest that food while you're sleeping.
I just love this because it's the fundamental basics of being a human being is really what we're talking about. Like, this is how you have happiness in your life. It's really not rocket science. It's so much easier. After you eat dinner as well, or any meal, do you think that going outside and like walking around, moving the body a little bit, going for a short walk benefits the digestive system?
Yes, it has been shown for both blood sugar balance and for just proper digestion to move for at least 10 minutes after eating.
Mhm.
So, as far as blood sugar balance, it's like really allowing that glucose to just go straight to the muscles and not like hang around and spike your insulin levels. And then just allows for things to move if you're physically moving as
Mhm.
far as your digestive tract. So gentle movement though, you're not supposed to be going off and doing burpees after you eat, but a nice walk. And it can be as accessible as like clean your kitchen after, which if you just cooked a big meal, that's going to need to happen too.
Absolutely. Yeah. I can't stand when the
Yeah.
dishes are still in the sink. So I'm like, let's clean, let's go outside, let's get the dogs doing their thing. So I love this. And this is basically
Yeah.
falling into cyclical living. So I would love to hear your definition of what that is.
So cyclical living, so it's really, going back and honoring our own infradian rhythm or our menstrual cycle, and realizing the correlation that we have in that and the attunement to nature. So, in both the earthly seasons and the lunar cycle, we are connected. And that, we have the four phases. Most typically, the menstruation is associated with um, the new moon, that darkness in the sky, the opportunity to hibernate, rest, just be slower in your movement. And then you move into the follicular phase, which is also, and also winter for the menstrual phase. And then you move into the follicular phase, and, that's associated with the earthly season of spring. Things are flourishing, your energy is starting to increase. It's good to eat like, you can have more like fresh, raw foods at that time. Um, and then moving into the next, which is the ovulatory phase, the culmination of the entire menstrual cycle, energy at full peak. That's most associated with the full moon and the summertime. And then lastly, the luteal phase, which is associated with like autumn or fall and kind of like that slowing down, things kind of like dying off once again. It's our longest phase too. So seeing that change in, foliage and yeah, that slowing down. So I would say, it's that realization, like I said, that we like are nature, and, nature has these seasons for a reason. We are not meant to always be in summer, always in like full swing, the pinnacle of energy. We are meant to go through, this process of allowing for things to blossom and, hit their peak and then die off and rest. So giving ourselves permission is huge in, our modern day society, where we're like constantly focused on the doing, but, going back to allowing for the being and realizing that sometimes that is the most productive thing that we can do. Just allow ourselves to be. And it's really cool too, like, as a vulva owner and having a menstrual cycle, a lot of times when we are bleeding, this is like when we are the most in touch with, um, you know, universal realms, ourself. Like, this is when our creative juices are like flowing the most. And so it can be a really great time to brainstorm, write things down, create art.
Mhm.
So, each phase has a cool opportunity for, whatever it is, the different aspects that make life so fulfilling. So,
Mm, I love being a vulva owner. It's so much fun. Like there's so much to honor and to relish and to think like our ancestors way back when someone was on their moon or their menstrual cycle like bleeding, they were like seen as godly. They were bowed down to like, oh, what wisdom can you share with us right now? What are you connected to? So I think it's really important to have this conversation and to get back to that cyclical living to begin with. When it comes to fueling ourselves during the different cycles, what would you say to quickly go back to food would be the best for each cycle? I know you have your own like cute little food calendar, and I'd love for you to talk more about that. But yeah, I'd love to hear what you have on your dish.
yeah. Okay. So for starting at the first phase, just typically, cycle day one is the first day of your bleed. And that's also like the menstrual phase, your period. As we know, we lose a lot of blood. Our uterine lining sheds during this time. So probably the most important thing to focus on is mineral-rich foods.
Mhm.
So, foods that are high in iron and magnesium is really huge too, potassium, sodium even. So, this can come in a variety of different things, but magnesium is a huge one. I really think it's not coincidental, but that we crave like chocolate and, leading up to our period and during our period, it is the most dense food source of magnesium, which is like the most calming mineral. So just going back to trusting our bodies and, knowing that they're wise and are guiding us in what we need. But also just, really like nourishing foods during this time, the warming foods, things that are comforting to you. And yeah, mineral rich. And then moving on to the follicular phase, so like that inner spring, it's really good to have kind of like those lighter, fresh foods. It's a great time to focus on like fermented foods, so like kimchi, sauerkraut, and you can have those big salads. And I would say like as a whole throughout, just focusing on nutrient density, just like lots of colors throughout. Is going to help with your gut and your liver function as well. But then moving on into summer. So again, like peak of our energy, that is our ovulatory phase. And this is like when you can have you're actually not going to be as hungry during the follicular and ovulatory phases. So it's like having like those lighter foods, and again, honor your body throughout and what you might be craving. But those fresh fruits. And I mean, right now I've just been loving watermelon. I'm actually about to go into my ovulatory phase, which is my inner summer, and it's summer. So it's, we love when that works out like that. But you can kind of think like what is in season during each of these phases. And although, that might not always line up with what, in our reality is in season, but making little adaptations here and there. And then the luteal phase is our inner fall. So again, think of like the foods that are in season in the fall. A lot of those are root vegetables, like those grounding foods. A lot of like complex carbs is actually really good during this time because your serotonin drops down a lot. So having those actually serotonin production, and then again, like focusing in on that magnesium in the luteal phase. Cacao, avocado, cashews, things like that. So I think, the most helpful thing is just to kind of visualize like what you'd be eating during each of those seasons.
I love that. And that's super easy to think back to because we can all think, oh, in the summer, I love watermelon, strawberries, blueberries, like all those things. And then in the winter, I'm like soup every day and night for my meal. Oh my God, I love it. Yay. Well, anyone who's out there who like wants an easy cheat sheet, Colleen has a really cute like fruit and vegetable one that helps like tell you what minerals are in what food and the highest to the lowest density, I believe. And it's awesome. I actually am very like I went to go and see if it was on your page, and like I really want to order it for myself and just hang it up. My partner really is interested in it as well, like being a Taurus. He just like I have you remember on the Teletubbies that one vacuum? That's him. Like he just anything in sight gets absorbed. I'm not really sure where it goes because he's a twig, but that's what it happens. So I'd love to have that for him. Be like, hey, at least like bring that into your portal. Might be helpful for you.
Oh my God. Oh my gosh. It's funny you say that too, because my partner and I have been like exploring I don't know, I feel like over the last like year or so, just like revisiting Teletubbies. And like, I don't know, I feel like it's something that we both watched, we 90s babies, and not like fully realizing what it encompassed. And then we went back and we watched it a few times, a few episodes, and it's like, nonverbal, it's just sounds, and they're just, they have their toast time. And you actually got him a shirt, Teletubbies, for Christmas, so that just all feels very aligned.
I love it. Now that we're talking about partners, I love partnership. I'm a Libra rising. My listeners know this, and I love love. Like being a Leo, I overly love, and then I have these expectations. So I like realize, all right, Isabel, it's okay. Like just accept what you get and be happy with that. But I would love to hear about your conscious relationship, because from what I've seen on your postings, like you weren't living together for 4 years, and then you have just recently moved in with them. And then I want to hear about that transition, like the benefits of you being solo, having your own space, being able to do you and be apart, and now what it's like that you're in the same space.
Yes, I'm with you. I feel like I don't know if it's I know Taurus is ruled by Venus, which is like, love and beauty, but I'm with you. I know I love love, and it's always been something I love talking on. And I think that's also why I've, been wanting to shift more into this space as well. Because it's again such an integral part of your wellness, your overall health, like having supportive, conscious relationships. So um yeah, I was single for a long time. And I think it was like very much me in my self-love journey. Like at first it was like intentional. I was like, oh, like, after breaking up with an ex at the end of my undergrad, I was like, okay, like I think I'm just gonna like focus on, building up myself and getting to know myself. And then I feel like my standards, I don't know, are just like I knew what I was looking for. And so it was just like very easy no's. And I was okay with that. And I mean, I definitely dated around a lot. Um, but I moved out on a whim, kind of on a whim. I don't know. I wanted to move to the West Coast for a long time. I'm from the Washington, D.C. area originally. So I moved out to Colorado like 2.5 years ago now. And didn't know anyone at all. But I knew that this was like where I was supposed to be. And yeah, so eventually I met Tom, my partner now, and we've been dating for 2 years. Yeah, so before that I'd lived in like my own space, like literally like my own apartment for 4 years prior. I was in Baltimore for like a job at the time, and then moving to Boulder. So yeah, being in a relationship with him and having our own spaces, which was like really great as we were like, building up our relationship, kind of having like my own comfort place where I could just go back to and yeah, have everything be exactly so and whatnot. And I think having my own place has really been super instrumental in my own journey and becoming my own best friend. And I think we can definitely touch on this, but I do think that is like probably the biggest, most important foundation of a healthy, conscious relationship is like having like dating yourself, like having that time to like really love on yourself, be so solid and whole in yourself before even really begin to explore a relationship with another. But yeah, so it's been almost a month now. So we're still, relatively new at cohabitating, but it's honestly been really beautiful. I will say in meeting Tom, I had never experienced anything like that, and just like so much fluidity and just like knowing and not like second guessing anything. So it's really surprising. I feel like I'm such a homebody. I'm such a like I like my space. So I really thought I was going to have a lot more hesitations about living together, but it's really been pretty easy. I think that it comes from the foundation that we've built in our relationship together, and just really honest, open communication, and just supporting one another in what we need, which comes a lot from like relationship check-ins, which we can talk about too. But yeah, it's been wonderful. I mean, it is nice that we have a balance of like I work from home, he goes to an office, and then we come together at the end of the day and on weekends. So
Mm. Mm, I love it. I'm just like beaming over here, rocking, just embracing this conversation. So when it comes to the conscious relationships, I cannot agree more on dating yourself. I cannot agree more. As someone who would just get out of a relationship 3 years deep, done. Let's go to the next one. Like, not healthy, not ideal, does not allow you to grieve or like pick up the pieces that are meant to be picked up. Whereas we break, if we don't allow that breaking process to fully happen, what are we even like? What is our form moving into the next relationship? It's just a lot of baggage, in my opinion, and a whole lot of like lack of self confidence and self love. And so I love that you really iterate like being your own best friend is the hot summer thing to do. If that is if you're someone getting out of a relationship or in a relation, but you want to have that deeper connection, let's be your own best friend and glorify yourself. And I think this whole podcast, getting into your cyclical living, like being more in tune with your menstrual cycle, having boundaries. This is all like your starting page. So take this and run with it and apply it to your life and have fun. And I would love for you to talk about your conscious relationship, like check ins. Like, what does that look like for you guys? And how do you really get that spark to not like fade away? I don't believe that we should ever stop pursuing our partners. Like, in my own opinion, like we should always have this pursuit and like wanting to be pursued, because that's the fun of it. Like, think about when you first started dating, what got you turned on? Like, what happened? What were you like? What were they like? And why does that fade away just because we get comfortable? I don't like that excuse anymore. So I'm like very bold about this because it's so like it just changes your life when you know this. So yeah, I want to hear all about your conscious relationship and how that goes.
Yes. Yeah, I am in full agreement that relationships like don't have to end as far as like the excitement, the spark, the, desire for one another. I feel like it really, it goes back to like being really present in each other's lives, like being very openly communicative of like what's going on, what is real for them. Because the reality is like we are evolving beings. So if you're with someone for a long time, you're going to be with like 10 different people. So, it's committing every day, like realizing that like in my opinion, like a conscious relationship is like knowing that like you are with that person by choice every single day. It's not like this mandatory, these that you have to, it's you choosing. So by you choosing to be with this person every day, you are, committing to continuing to know them throughout their journey, and growing, choosing to grow together in whatever direction be. um, and then I think, yeah, in the relationship check-ins that we do, they are weekly. And, we just choose whatever day works for us. It's been Friday evenings, but we check in with what went well this last week, what perhaps didn't go as well. It just kind of creates the safe space, the opportunity to bring these things up in a very like regulated space. Like that's a key thing in going into this. Like no one should be like elevated in emotional state in any way. It just be like, the agreement is like whatever is said here is safe, and no one is going to be like reactive. Of course you can feel whatever way you feel about it, but it's more like solution oriented and just like really allowing that person to be like seen and heard. So yeah, what maybe didn't go so well, what you are desiring more of, and then how your partner can best support you in the week to come. So if things are coming up, you have a big work project or whatever, like maybe you could help me, prep my meals, or just like really hype me up, whatever it might be. So yeah, having those four things has been really, really helpful, because I do think that, in speaking on like desire, like physical intimacy, I do think the basis is emotional intimacy. So when you are able to like maintain that like open, honest communication, you feel safe in your body with this person, then you, especially as women, as vulva owners, you are then able to like open yourself up and like flourish like when you're around them sexually. So, it makes a lot of sense that if we are not allowing our partners into our like emotional landscape, being with someone for X amount of years, then we're not going to feel open to being sexual with them. And if we are, it's going to feel a lot more surface level and not like get to those like deeper, expansive levels of that like sexual realm. So yeah, and then also just like non-sexual forms of physical intimacy, just maintaining that, just like that newness, like just holding hands, hugging, touching each other, little things like that make a huge difference. And that kind of like anticipatory energy, like really building that like that sexual desire. Someone said this one time and I don't know who it is, I would credit them, but it's foreplay begins the moment sex ends. So like always like maintaining just like, like showing that you admire them, that you respect them, that you think they're hot, that you think their mind is sexy, like, just like, I mean, those are a lot of words of affirmation, but the non-physical intimacy as well, and just yeah, keeping that alive, being really intentional about that, I think is important.
I love that quote. I love like it the moment sex ends, foreplay begins again. I actually saw a Mama Jean on Instagram, like a reel by her, and she said, like, we don't care how big your cock is, how thick it is, any of that. Like, what we want from you is a little appreciation. And then that arousal, like to maintain that arousal all day. To the men, let's get more of that in our life, because if we can be in this desired state of like, ooh, when they get home, then this, and like I can just touch them and I might get this kind of way, and like maybe we can explore something. And having that safety within our own bodies is everything. And I think this, like getting in tune with your cycle, nourishing yourself, knowing what you need intuitively, and just connecting with yourself on that deep level, it allows a relationship to truly blossom. And like you said, like you know what you want. What, because when you know what you want, you can make decisions. Decisions, I guess the Latin word of it is like to cut off. So you're cutting off parts that do not count. So you're deciding like what does not get to stay. And that's such a beautiful way to look at making a decision, because as someone with some air lost in their birth chart, like I can be so lost in trying to make a decision on something. But the moment you do, it's like, oh, you are choosing success in this own way. Or you can look at it in more of a way of what would you like, what could you not live without? Like, what would you regret not choosing? Because you're gonna like, they're both basically things that you could regret because you're going to miss out on something. So like what would you miss out on more and like feel bad about? And so I love like being able to know like your certain boundaries in that relationship cultivation. So huge. And then in the bedroom, you just get deeper. You unlock those wounds. You can talk about your traumas. You can really begin to be vulnerable, and it can go deeper than sex, because sex is on a surface level great, but it's not just like a one and done thing, and it's not just the men going and or the penis owners going. It's just like a very inclusive environment of sharing your heart, being seen on a soul level, like reaching this ecstasy that is a form of experiencing God, in my opinion, from like my own experience. And I love that you're doing this work and that you are out here sharing it with everyone. And like, hey, these are the normal things. Like, let's normalize this easy, simple way of living that is wholesome and loving and just like nourishing from the inside out. So I'm deeply honored that you are here doing the thing.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much, Isabel. Yeah, so well put. And yeah, I mean, being able to like enter those like next level like experiences of like pleasure, like an ecstatic state, you definitely are able to like tap into a whole nother level of consciousness. And I mean, even like our sacral chakra, like our, you know, our womb space, like our sexual energy is like our life force energy. So to be able to like tap into that, you know, I feel like in the media, like in our conditioning, like sexuality, sex has been made into like this almost like frivolous, materialistic thing, but it's like so much more. Yeah, it's like I feel like when you are able to like be in your body fully, like what we were talking about before, and like really like experience all of the senses and like know what you like, you know, what makes you experience pleasure.
Mhm.
um, then you're able to then bring that in with a partner. And you know, when you know yourself, when they know themselves, and then you come together, and then I feel like you're able to get so much, yeah, there's a whole nother level of power and elevation in that experience of just next level, you know, God consciousness, I would say.
Yes, that's a great way to put it. God consciousness is right. And yeah, for anyone who like didn't catch that, just to like make it very blunt, like when you have a sexual practice with yourself and your partner has their own sexual practice, like that is what we're like, that's the base. Because when you can be comfortable touching yourself, women, vulva owners, yes, you deserve that. Not just men. They're not the only masturbators here. Let's make that normal. And so when you have that practice, I remember my first time really touching myself was in winter of 2019. I was 23, 22. What? I was petrified. of anything intimate, very shy, very nervous my whole life. I asked my mom to opt me out of the sex ed convo in the 6th grade because of how nerve wracking I was to like even learn about it. My parents weren't super intimate in front of us. I didn't understand it. If I heard anything, it was behind closed doors. So it just didn't make a whole lot of sense. And then as I grew up, it was a very don't look at anything, like lights off. This is just something pleasurable. I am very attracted to people, like blah, blah, blah. And it just didn't have any space for expansion or growth. It was literally like wearing armor and trying to like have sex, which is just, I don't think, a very easy thing. And yeah, so like the first time really experiencing that, wild. Like you get to learn about what you look like, what feels good for you, like the whole 9 yards. And I love that emphasis. So y'all, if you don't touch yourself, permission to touch yourself from here on out. And if you have any practices that you'd like to share that help you come into this space, if like someone has never done this before, like what those would be.
Yeah, I resonate with your experience so much in a very like conservative upbringing. And I mean, I did have like the FLE or family life education classes that I attended, which were, so basic and very much like fear mongered. But yeah, I didn't masturbate or self pleasure for the first time until I was, I think, 25. I got my first vibrator. And yeah, before that, I had never even experienced orgasm, in partnered sex, which I think is a really important element to point out. This whole like, orgasm inequality, the pleasure gap, and that, vulva owners have much, much less orgasms and sexual encounters than penis owners do. And that's simply because we just don't understand the female anatomy, how female pleasure works. We're simply never taught it. So it makes sense. So it really comes into, our responsibility to educate ourselves. So I'm so happy we're talking about this. So yeah, I think one of the first things you can do, which can feel really scary because, especially the way our vulvas are positioned. And maybe you guys know, maybe you don't, I'll just throw this out there, but like your vulva is your entire external genitalia and your vagina is just the inner canal that, penises, fingers, blood, babies come out of, and then vulvas, your clitoris, your clitoral hood, your labia minora, majora, your urethra, and then you can see the vaginal opening there. But I would invite you to go in front of the mirror and sit down and open your legs, and maybe you need a light of some sort to see a little bit better, but really like take in what your vulva looks like, all the different parts, that it's probably not even or perfect looking. Like maybe your greatest exposure to vulvas has been porn or things in the media, and the truth there is that a lot of those performers, actors have actually been surgically manipulated to, have these like perfect looking vulvas, perfectly even labias. But in reality, like vulvas are like flowers, they're all so different. They smell slightly different. But they're beautiful and they're unique as they are. So I think just really looking and taking in. And then the next level to that would be self-pleasuring, touching yourself so that your clitoris actually starts to engorge with blood. And if listeners don't know this, in the womb, the penis and the clitoris are actually the same body part, and they just kind of like shape shift into different forms when the genetic instruction takes place for the sex of the human. And so you can imagine like, how a penis would feel. Maybe we have penis owners listening. When touched in a certain way, like it engorges with blood, it becomes erect, and that is when it's sexually stimulated and ready for sex. Same with the clitoris, it needs to be engorged with blood. It like basically inflates. So it's really cool if you're in front of a mirror to like watch that process happen. It's literally your flowers like blossoming. So, in that way, vulva owners need to be aroused as well. Like sex is not going to be pleasurable unless you're aroused. So I'm sure we've all experienced like, being entered before we're ready. Like it's no one is having a good time in that way. Like there's no lubrication, like it's just like sandpaper, just yeah.
Yes. Hey, fly.
Vulva owners need a lot more time. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I have a whole bunch of bugs like coming out of nowhere because they're so excited about this conversation. They're like, they're talking about flowers. Let's pollinate. Like they're ready. And
Yeah.
I love what you're saying. So the whole like the clitoris being engorged, that has just recently happened in this relationship I'm in now as a 25-year-old. And
Mhm.
I think ah, it's just so important to reiterate and to know. And take the time, talk to your partner. I'm not sure they're going to mind pleasuring you if like they're really consciously there with you and like they adore the body, they honor who you are, all the things. And so like really like I think like in my own self, it's fear of being seen in a vulnerable way, of trusting that they love my body or like they appreciate me genuinely. And like that's where I would get tripped up. And if you have any advice for women in that department, like to make that big step, I think that would be a fun one of our last notes to hit.
Yeah. So I would say still with the mirror work, but you could also extend that to like your whole body and like make it a regular practice. So like that belief with like the repetition is like integrated into your consciousness. So
Mhm.
it's like, I love my body. My body is so beautiful. Like my body is like a flower that like blossoms when it feels like safe and aroused. And then, that can be looking at your vulva, looking at your body. And then um, I would, this is definitely something that is important to speak to your partner about and just like, elevating their education on female pleasure. And, really like admiring your body for, all that it is. And of course, it just does start with you and your relationship with, your vulva and just like knowing how incredible it is like in the smells and the looks and like it all is exactly how it's supposed to be. And I know this can take time from all of our like deep rooted conditioning and
Mhm.
that it's, this shameful, dirty thing. But yeah, really prioritizing unlearning that. And then, yeah, bringing your partner on the journey of, yeah, taking things slow and enjoying and just appreciating. Because yeah, like I said, vulva owners do need a lot more time and a lot more buildup because just a little fun fact, most penis owners have spontaneous arousal, which means that you can be aroused at like any moment you're washing the dishes and you're like, ooh, I want to have sex. But most vulva owners have responsive arousal.
Mm.
So that is, something, some sexual stimuli needs to be taking place. So perhaps that's like a sext, something, earlier in the day, and then you're thinking about it more and it's more like a long buildup rather than like a let's go, And of
Absolutely.
course they can experience in for both, but that's generally from the books that I've read. Some of my favorites are Come As You Are and Becoming Clitorate. I highly recommend both of those.
I love it. Come as you are and highly clitorate. Must reads. Get them on your list. Audible. Yeah, yeah.
I was gonna say Becoming Clitorate. I don't know if I said that.
Oh, yeah.
Be-
Becoming.
Becoming Clitorate. Yes.
Perfect. I love it. Yes. I have two more questions that I have to ask. So my first one is, how do we introduce the penis owners in our lives or our partners in general that don't experience a menstrual cycle into that world so that they can support us through it and help us through it?
Hmm. So I would really include them in your tracking journey. So perhaps that's actually practicing like the fertility awareness method. So like tracking your biomarkers to know when you're fertile and then be able to take action from there. Or just simply like, if you're not tracking your biomarkers, you're just kind of like loosely tracking your cycle and which phase you're in. Just, give them a brief overview in the beginning, like, there's 4 phases and each phase, like, my hormones fluctuate and I'm going to feel XYZ way, just so you know what to expect. And we can, plan things around that. Like we can plan more like cozy nights in when I'm in my luteal or menstrual phases. We can do more adventurous, like big hikes or I don't know, crazy adventures when I have higher energy in my follicular and ovulatory phases. And sometimes you're not gonna feel as energized, and maybe they can step in to really treat you, maybe massage you or bring you nourishing foods during that phase. And that can definitely increase the just intimacy and up level your relationship. And that way I think that would be really helpful to more deeply understand what your partner is going through. And also you can let them know that they're on a cycle as well. They are on a 24-hour cycle, much like the solar cycle. So their testosterone is at peak. It's mostly a testosterone cycle, like in the morning time, and then slowly throughout the day it decreases. So and that way you can be like, see, we're like yin and yang, like I'm the moon, you're the sun.
Yes. Oh, I love that. I feel like that all plays into just growing that communication piece and that trust, that honesty to get deeper into your pleasure together, into understanding together, into just confronting the hard feelings with more ease and saying, hey, this is how I honestly feel. It's not an attack. What's your how are you feeling and what's your experience? And I think when all of this is combined, it just continues to grow and blossom a really beautiful flower at the end of the day or in the beginning of the day, whenever this flower likes to blossom. Oh, I love it. What was my last question? Let me see if I can remember it. I think that pretty much hit home. I just want to see if I can think on it. I feel complete. I feel like we probably nailed it. And lastly, how can people get in touch with you? So you have your newsletter, the Body Literacy Bulletin, which is a fabulous name. I love it. How can people get on that? And yeah, just more ways to connect with you deeper.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram at Green Colleen or TikTok at the Green Colleen. And I have all my offerings and the link in my bios there, but I do offer the Dutch test consults and then the pre-recorded fertility awareness method masterclasses. And I will be beginning it's still in the works, but it's going to be like a full-fledged, like hormone up leveling, sexuality, and feminine embodiment group program. That'll be 9 weeks starting September 1st. So more to come on that, but you can definitely connect with me best on Instagram or
Yay!
TikTok.
Perfect. And spell your handle because it's not how you usually spell Colleen.
Yes, it is confusing. My name is not how it is in my handle. It's just because when I began it, there was no availability for that. So it is green as you would spell the color, and then Colleen, Collean.
Mm-hmm.
And then TikTok is the same, but V in front of it.
Perfect. I honestly thought when I looked at it, I was like, oh, like Colleen, like collaborating. I don't know for what my mind thought, but like lean. I was like, this is cool. My mind was trying to think of like how it could be like a communicative way of like coming together. And yeah, I thought it was a nice play on it. So yeah, awesome. That's how you
Yeah.
spell it, everybody. Connect with Colleen. She's amazing. Hopefully you were able to take at least one nugget of wisdom from this. I think we hit a lot of great just bits and pieces to take with you to arouse yourself, to have deeper connection with your partner, deeper cyclical living connection, getting off of the birth control, not for any other reason, but to be more in tune with who you are at the end of the day. And do you have anything else that you'd like to add at before we end the podcast, Colleen?
I just want to thank you for having me. And I think this topic, I mean, we've covered a lot of topics, but the whole realm of just, exploring and, developing that more intimate connection with yourself is, such a beautiful starting point for all of these facets to really thrive. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. Hopefully we can do another one in the future, but I'm honored that we were able to come together today. I'm honored for everyone out there listening to be a part of this in your own growth, in the growth of the show. And if there's any questions or comments that you have that you'd like to answer, please email Isabel at isabelwellman.com or connect with Colleen over Instagram or TikTok at her handle, the Green Colleen or Green Colleen. So thank you all so much for listening. Love you big time. And we will catch you on the next show.